Sarah Matthews stared out the train window, watching the landscape blur as it raced by. She was on her way to a spiritual retreat, something she never thought she'd need. Work, once her passion, had become a source of exhaustion. But what was the real issue? Is my career everything I am? Questions like these followed her relentlessly, and the more answers she sought, the more lost she felt. Today, she hoped she might finally find some clarity. Next to her sat Mike Carter, a successful businessman, or so the world thought. Inside, he felt increasingly disconnected from everything that mattered. The constant business trips, deadlines, and targets consumed him. Success always seemed within reach, yet the closer he got, the emptier he felt. Why do I keep chasing something that never fulfills me? He wondered, glancing at Sarah, who seemed equally distant, lost in her own thoughts, as the train sped towards their destination. As the train climbed through the mountains, Lisa Brooks, the third passenger, felt a growing sense of anxiety. Unlike Sarah and Mike, she wasn't a business professional. She was a nurse, always good at caring for others. But when it came to herself, things got complicated. When did I lose myself trying to please everyone? She asked herself, a deep emptiness weighing on her chest. Would this spiritual retreat be her last hope for finding herself again? When they arrived at the retreat, they were greeted by Master Sheng, whose presence radiated an indescribable calm. "Welcome," he said, with a soft smile. His voice carried a peaceful energy that instantly drew them in. The group had come here seeking answers, but they had no idea how deep this journey of self-discovery would go. Sarah, Mike, and Lisa exchanged brief glances, each wondering what awaited them in this mysterious place. Master Sheng guided them to a serene garden, the air thick with the scent of jasmine. He gestured for them to sit in a circle. "You are all here because something in your life feels out of balance," he said gently. "But the answers you seek do not come from the outside world. They come from understanding the spiritual energy that guides you." He paused, studying their expressions. "How do you find clarity when you're too lost to even see where you are?" The silence that followed felt heavy. Mike shifted uncomfortably, unused to introspection. Sarah looked down at the ground, feeling the weight of Master Sheng's words. Lisa, however, found herself unexpectedly drawn to them. The idea that there was an energy guiding her, something beyond her control, felt both terrifying and comforting. What if I've been ignoring a deeper part of myself all this time? The question sent a shiver down her spine. Master Sheng continued, his eyes piercing yet kind. "Each of you was born under the influence of a spiritual animal, an animal whose energy aligns with your birth month, guiding you, whether you realize it or not." His gaze shifted to Sarah. "You, born in January, are connected to the wolf, a creature of strength, loyalty, and leadership. But leading is not always about control. It is about knowing when to rely on others." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Leadership without control? She wasn't sure she even knew what that meant. Mike and Lisa listened intently as Master Sheng explained that each month carried a different spiritual animal, with lessons unique to each person. "This is not just about discovering your animal," he said. "It's about understanding how its energy shapes your life. When you learn to harmonize with this energy, you can find the balance that's been missing." He smiled, a soft glow in his eyes. "Now, let's begin the journey to uncover the truth about your spirit animals." Sarah's mind was still spinning from the idea of leadership without control, but before she could reflect more, Master Sheng turned his attention to Lisa. "You were born in June," he said, his voice steady. "Your spirit animal is the deer, an animal of gentleness, intuition, and grace." Lisa felt a lump in her throat. Intuition? She had always prided herself on taking care of others, but somewhere along the way she had forgotten how to listen to her inner voice. Lisa nodded slowly, but her mind raced. Had I ignored my intuition all these years? The thought weighed heavily on her, as if the answer was just out of reach. Master Sheng's eyes softened as he continued. "The deer teaches you to move gently through life, to be strong through patience, and to embrace your sensitivity as a source of strength, not weakness." Lisa blinked, her heart stirring. For the first time in years she felt seen. Mike, however, was growing more impatient. All this talk of spirit animals, intuition, and patience felt far removed from his world of numbers and deadlines. "How is this supposed to help me?" he wondered, shifting in his seat. Master Sheng seemed to sense his restlessness. "And you, Mike," he began, "born in April. You are guided by the hawk, a creature of vision and determination." Mike straightened, intrigued despite himself. A hawk? It sounded strong, powerful, something he could relate to. But then Sheng's tone shifted. Yet, the hawk teaches more than ambition. It teaches patience, the ability to see the big picture, and to wait for the right moment to act. Are you always looking forward, Mike? Perhaps you've forgotten to live in the present. Mike felt a pang in his chest. Was I always chasing something, never satisfied with where I was? His ambitions had consumed him, and now he wondered if that pursuit had cost him more than he realized. The air felt thick with unspoken realizations. Master Sheng's words hung in the air, wrapping around the three of them. Your spirit animals are guides, but you must listen to them. Your lives have become out of balance because you've ignored these lessons, Sheng continued, his voice now a quiet murmur. How could they have known what they were missing? Sarah, Mike, and Lisa exchanged glances. Their journeys were just beginning, but the questions they faced were already heavier than they had imagined. Master Sheng stood, motioning them to rise as well. Today, we will meditate on these energies, beginning the process of reconnecting with the forces that have always been within you. Each of you must learn to balance the qualities of your spirit animal with the life you've built. Only then will you find the clarity you seek. They followed him into the temple, hearts full of doubt, hope, and anticipation. The road ahead was long, but they could feel the first steps of change stirring within them. The next morning, the trio gathered once more in the temple garden. The sun filtered softly through the trees, and Master Sheng began by focusing on the month of March. Those born in March, he began, are guided by the dolphin, a creature of joy, empathy, and communication. Though none of them were born in March, the lesson was important. The dolphin's energy, he explained, wasn't limited to birth. It could guide anyone seeking emotional balance and harmony. The dolphin teaches us that connection is the heart of all things, Master Sheng said, his eyes drifting to Lisa. For those who find themselves too lost in the needs of others, this spirit reminds you that empathy starts within. How can you offer true support if you've disconnected from your own joy? Lisa swallowed hard. This was her challenge. She had given so much of herself, but now, even when surrounded by people, she often felt utterly alone. As Master Sheng spoke, Mike's mind wandered. Empathy wasn't his strong suit. Was it even necessary? But then he remembered how distant he'd become from his family, his wife's complaints about his lack of emotional presence. The dolphin's lesson wasn't just for the nurturing types like Lisa. He realized it was about finding balance between ambition and personal connection. Have I lost sight of what truly matters in my chase for success? The thought lingered uncomfortably. The dolphin reminds us to play, to find joy in the simple things. Master Sheng continued, his voice calm. Without joy, life becomes mechanical, a series of tasks with no heart. How often do you stop to laugh, to breathe, to simply be? Sarah felt a knot tighten in her chest. She had become so consumed with her responsibilities that she couldn't remember the last time she had truly enjoyed something. Have I forgotten how to live in the moment? Master Sheng led them into a meditation, encouraging them to envision the dolphin's energy surrounding them. Feel the joy ripple through you, like waves in the ocean, he said softly. Lisa closed her eyes and imagined the water, the calm it brought. She realized she had been so focused on others that she had forgotten to care for herself. As the meditation deepened, each of them began to connect with the dolphin's message in their own way. When the meditation ended, Sarah, Mike, and Lisa sat quietly, absorbing what they had felt. For the first time in a long time, Sarah didn't feel like she had to rush to the next task. Mike found himself thinking about how little time he'd spent with his daughter, always caught up in work. And Lisa? She felt a strange sense of calm, a reminder that she was allowed to find joy too. Was this the first step toward healing? She wondered. As the day wore on, they began to understand that the dolphin's lessons weren't just for March-born souls, but for anyone seeking to restore joy and balance. Master Sheng smiled as he watched them. They were beginning to grasp the truth, that these animals weren't just symbols, but guides to deeper wisdom, if only they were willing to listen. That evening, the energy in the temple shifted. Mike felt more on edge. As the only April born in the group, he knew today's lesson would hit close to home. The hawk, as I mentioned before, Master Sheng said, teaches the power of vision, but vision without focus is like a blade without a handle, sharp but uncontrollable. Mike frowned. He had always prided himself on his vision, on always staying one step ahead. But had he lost control along the way? Master Sheng continued. The hawk sees the big picture, soaring high above the ground. But the true lesson of the hawk is knowing when to act. Many of us are so eager to reach our goals that we forget the importance of timing. Mike shifted uncomfortably. Was this the problem? Had he been so focused on success that he missed the moments that really mattered? He thought about his wife's growing distance, the missed soccer games with his son. How many moments had he sacrificed in pursuit of something always just out of reach? The hawk also teaches patience, Sheng said, locking eyes with Mike. To soar high, you must first wait for the wind to carry you. Rushing ahead without considering the consequences leaves you vulnerable. You can lose everything before you've even begun. Mike's heart clenched. He had always feared failure, always thought moving forward at full speed was the only way. But now, for the first time, he wondered, what if the way I've been living is the reason I feel so empty? As the group meditated, Mike found it hard to sit still. Patience was not something he was used to. But as he visualized the hawk soaring above him, the wind beneath its wings, he felt something shift. Was it possible that waiting, rather than rushing, could bring more clarity? The thought was both terrifying and freeing. He had spent so much time in control. Maybe letting go wasn't the worst thing in the world. When the meditation ended, Mike sat in silence, grappling with the realization that perhaps his constant pursuit of success had cost him more than he had anticipated. Sarah and Lisa looked at him curiously, but he said nothing. The hawk's message was clear. It wasn't about flying higher. It was about knowing when to rise. Mike had a lot to think about. Later that evening, as the group shared their reflections, Mike finally spoke. I've always thought success was about moving forward, never slowing down, he admitted. But maybe I've been blind to the moments that really matter. Master Sheng smiled knowingly. The hawk teaches you to see beyond the obvious, to look deeper. Sometimes, stillness brings the clearest vision. Mike nodded, feeling both humbled and strangely at peace. The next day brought a new lesson, this time for those born in May. Master Sheng explained the nature of the horse, a creature of freedom, power, and vitality. Though none of them were born in May, the group listened carefully. The horse teaches us the importance of embracing our wild nature, Sheng said, his voice calm but commanding. It is about finding strength in freedom and learning to overcome obstacles with determination. Sarah was particularly drawn to this lesson. Though born in January, she had always admired those who seemed to live freely, unburdened by the expectations of others. Had I spent too much time trying to control everything? She wondered. The horse's energy spoke of liberation, a power that came from trusting oneself and one's instincts. Could she find that same freedom within herself? The horse reminds us that life is not meant to be tamed, Sheng continued. It teaches us to follow our instincts and to trust in our ability to face challenges head-on. Lisa, who had always been cautious and careful, felt a pang of longing. How different would my life be if I trusted my instincts more? She thought. She had always played it safe, but something about the horse's energy stirred a desire for more. More risk, more passion, more life. As they meditated, Sarah visualized herself as the horse, running freely across an open field. The wind in her hair, the ground firm beneath her feet. For the first time in a long time, she felt what it meant to be free, not from responsibilities, but from the fear of losing control. Was this what I had been missing all along? She wondered. The ability to let go and trust that things would work out? Mike too found something in the horse's message. He had always been driven by goals, by structure. But the idea of freedom, real freedom, was foreign to him. Could success come from following my instincts, rather than always having a plan? The thought both intrigued and frightened him. But as the meditation deepened, he began to realize that maybe, just maybe, he had been living in a self-made prison, and the horse held the key to his release. After the meditation, the group shared their thoughts. Sarah spoke first. I've always been so focused on control, but now I wonder if that's been my biggest limitation. Lisa nodded in agreement. I've always been careful, but I think it's time I started trusting myself more. Mike remained silent, but inside, he felt a shift. The horse had awakened something in him. Something wild, something free. Lisa had been anticipating this day since they began their spiritual journey. Born in June, she was connected to the deer, a symbol of gentleness, intuition, and grace. Master Sheng began the session with a soft smile. The deer moves quietly, with sensitivity and awareness, he explained. It teaches us the power of being gentle, not only with others, but with ourselves. Lisa, you've always cared for others, but have you cared for yourself with the same tenderness? Lisa felt a deep pang in her chest. She had always known she gave too much and asked for too little in return. But hearing it aloud, from someone who barely knew her, made it sting even more. How long have I neglected my own needs? She wondered. Master Sheng continued. The deer's strength lies in its ability to move through the world with grace. It trusts its instincts, sensing danger before it arrives. Lisa, your intuition is a gift. Have you been listening to it? As they meditated, Lisa imagined the deer, walking silently through a forest, its senses heightened, aware of every movement in the trees. She realized she had been ignoring her instincts, always putting others first, fearing that if she didn't, she would be seen as selfish. But isn't neglecting myself also a form of harm? She thought. For the first time, she allowed herself to embrace the idea that taking care of herself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. Mike and Sarah watched as Lisa's face softened during the meditation. She seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. When the meditation ended, Lisa opened her eyes with a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in years. I've spent so much time worrying about others, she said quietly, but maybe it's time I start trusting my own intuition too. Sarah nodded in understanding. They were all learning to listen to the parts of themselves they had long ignored. Master Sheng smiled gently. The deer teaches us to move through life with gentleness, but also with confidence. Trust in your ability to navigate the world with grace, Lisa. You don't need to force anything. The path will reveal itself when you are ready. Lisa's heart swelled with a new sense of peace. Could it really be this simple? She wondered. She had always overcomplicated things, but perhaps the answer had been within her all along. That evening, Lisa walked through the temple garden alone, reflecting on the day's lesson. The air was cool, and the stars twinkled softly above her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the need to rush back to anyone or anything. She was content just being. This is what I've been missing, she thought, smiling to herself. The deer had taught her a valuable lesson, one she knew would guide her for the rest of her life. As the next day began, Master Sheng shifted his focus to July. Those born in July, he said, are guided by the crab, a symbol of protection, resilience, and emotional depth. Sarah's interest piqued. She had always thought of crabs as strange creatures, moving sideways and hiding in their shells. But what deeper meaning did they hold in the spiritual realm? The crab teaches us the importance of boundaries, Sheng explained, protecting what is sacred while knowing when to retreat and when to emerge. Mike, ever the pragmatist, couldn't help but feel skeptical. Boundaries? How could an animal that hides behind a shell teach anything about strength? He thought. But Master Sheng's next words caught his attention. The crab's strength lies in its ability to protect itself without shutting the world out. It knows how to balance vulnerability with defense. For those born under its influence, the challenge is learning how to guard your emotions without isolating yourself. Lisa, having recently embraced the lessons of the deer, found herself deeply resonating with this idea. She had always struggled with emotional boundaries, often giving too much and then feeling drained. Boundaries are not walls, Master Sheng continued. They are gates that you control. The crab teaches us to cheerfully who and what we let into our emotional space. Lisa nodded in agreement. She had spent her whole life letting everyone in, but maybe it was time to start being more selective. As they meditated on the crab, Sarah began to see herself in the creature's protective nature. Have I built too many walls? She wondered. She had always been strong. I've always in control. But maybe that strength had come at the cost of her own vulnerability. The crab reminded her that it was okay to retreat sometimes, to take care of herself first before taking on the world's burdens. Maybe I don't have to be everything for everyone all the time, she thought. Mike, too, found a surprising connection to the crab. As someone who had always charged forward, he realized that sometimes moving sideways, taking a step back, was necessary. Have I been so focused on progress that I've ignored the importance of reflection? He asked himself. The crab's lesson wasn't just about protecting oneself from harm, but also about the resilience to keep going, even when life's tides tried to pull you down. When the meditation ended, Sarah felt a new sense of freedom. I've always seen vulnerability as weakness, she admitted, but maybe it's just part of being human. Master Sheng nodded. The crab shows us that strength and vulnerability can coexist. You can protect yourself while still remaining open to the world. Mike and Lisa exchanged glances, both realizing that the crab's lessons applied to them in ways they hadn't expected. As the sun set that evening, Sarah walked along the temple grounds, feeling lighter than she had in months. The crab had shown her that it was okay to retreat, to take time for herself. She didn't always have to be the strong leader. Sometimes it was enough to simply be. The next morning, Master Sheng introduced the spirit animal of August, the lion. The lion is a symbol of courage, strength, and leadership, he began. It teaches us to lead with integrity and to face challenges head-on. Mike felt a surge of energy at the mention of the lion. It was an animal he could relate to, strong, commanding, unafraid of anything. But as Sheng continued, Mike realized there was more to the lion's lesson than raw power. The lion leads not by force, but by example, Sheng explained. True leadership comes from within. It's not about controlling others, it's about inspiring them through your actions. Mike felt a familiar tension rise in his chest. I've always led through authority, he thought. But have I ever truly inspired anyone? The idea gnawed at him, forcing him to confront the ways he had built his career on power, not connection. Sarah, though born in January, was also drawn to the lion's message. She had always seen herself as a leader, but like Mike, her leadership had often been based on control. The lion teaches us that true power comes from self-awareness, Sheng continued. To lead others, you must first know yourself. Are you leading from a place of fear or from a place of courage? Sarah felt the words hit her like a bolt of lightning. Have I been leading out of fear? As they meditated, Mike visualized the lion, its golden mane shining in the sunlight, its gaze calm yet fierce. He imagined himself walking beside it, not as a master commanding a beast, but as an equal, learning from its wisdom. What if I led with compassion, not control? The thought stirred something deep within him. He had always seen leadership as a battle, a constant struggle for dominance. But perhaps true leadership was about lifting others up, not pushing them down. For Sarah, the lion's message was just as powerful. She realized that her need for control had come from a deep fear of failure. But if I trust myself, she thought, I don't need to control everything. I can lead with confidence, not fear. The lion's courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about facing fear with integrity and grace. Sarah felt a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't have to be perfect. She just had to be true to herself. When the meditation ended, Mike and Sarah shared a knowing glance. They were both leaders, but they had been leading from a place of fear and control. Now the lion had shown them a new way, one that was rooted in courage, self-awareness, and the strength to inspire others, not dominate them. As they left the temple that day, both felt a sense of purpose they hadn't known before. The lion had given them the gift of true leadership. The following day, Master Sheng introduced the spirit animal of September, the owl. The owl represents wisdom, discernment, and the ability to see what others cannot, he said softly. Sarah felt a deep connection to this animal, even though she wasn't born in September. The owl's silent strength resonated with her. The owl teaches us that wisdom is not about knowing everything, Sheng continued. It's about understanding what truly matters and acting accordingly. Lisa, who had always been introspective, felt a kinship with the owl as well. I've spent my life trying to understand others, she thought. But how often have I taken the time to understand myself? The owl's lesson was clear. Wisdom begins with self-awareness. You cannot truly see the world until you've seen yourself. As Master Sheng guided them through a meditation, Lisa imagined the owl, perched high in a tree, its eyes wide and luminous. The owl didn't rush to act. It waited, watched, and only moved when the moment was right. Have I been rushing through life without stopping to really see? She wondered. Lisa had always been a caretaker, but the owl reminded her that wisdom wasn't just about helping others. It was about knowing when to step back and reflect. Mike, who had always relied on quick decisions and gut instincts, found the owl's message unsettling. He prided himself on being decisive, but the owl urged patience, discernment, and quiet reflection. Am I missing something by always acting so fast? He asked himself. The idea of slowing down, of waiting for clarity, felt foreign but necessary. The owl showed him that sometimes the best decisions come from stillness, not action. Sarah, too, found solace in the owl's wisdom. She had spent so much time trying to lead, to control, to keep everything in balance. But the owl reminded her that true wisdom wasn't about holding everything together. It was about knowing when to let go. Maybe I don't need all the answers, she thought. Maybe wisdom is trusting that the answers will come when I'm ready to hear them. When the meditation ended, the group sat in silence, each reflecting on the owl's quiet strength. Wisdom is not loud, Master Sheng said, his voice barely above a whisper. It doesn't need to be. It comes when you are still enough to hear it. The group nodded, understanding that the owl's lessons would stay with them long after they left the temple. Wisdom wasn't something they needed to seek. It was already within them, waiting to be acknowledged. The next morning, Master Sheng introduced the animal spirit for October, the raven. The raven symbolizes transformation, intelligence, and mystery, he began, his voice calm but with an air of intrigue. Mike leaned in slightly, intrigued by the idea of transformation. He had always thought of himself as resistant to change, but the raven was different. The raven teaches us that change is not just necessary. It is inevitable, Master Sheng continued. But transformation doesn't always come easy. Sarah felt a strange connection to the raven. She had been through so many changes in her life, yet she often fought them, trying to maintain control. But what if she embraced the change? The raven shows us that life is full of cycles, death and rebirth, endings and new beginnings, Sheng said softly. Transformation is not something to fear. It is a chance to evolve, to become something more. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Had she been resisting the very thing that could set her free? Lisa, too, found comfort in the raven's message. She had always been afraid of change, clinging to the familiar for safety. But the raven reminded her that every end brings a new beginning. Transformation requires letting go of what no longer serves us, Sheng said, his eyes meeting hers. Lisa nodded, understanding for the first time that perhaps the things she had been holding on to were the very things holding her back. As they meditated, each of them visualized the raven, its dark wings spreading wide, symbolizing the unknown. Mike, who had always prided himself on being in control, realized that the changes he feared most were the ones he needed to embrace. What if letting go is the key to becoming something greater, he wondered. For Lisa, the raven was a symbol of renewal, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was always a chance for rebirth. When the meditation ended, Mike spoke first. I've always been afraid of change, he admitted. But maybe it's time I start seeing it as an opportunity, not a threat. Sarah smiled softly. I think we've all been resisting something, she said. But the raven is teaching us that change is how we grow. Lisa nodded, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Transformation wasn't something to be feared. It was a gift. Master Sheng smiled at them all. The raven teaches us that we are always in the process of becoming. Life is not static. Embrace the mystery, and you will find your true self. The group left the session with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face whatever changes came their way. The air was crisp as the group gathered for the day's lesson. Today, we explore the spirit of November, the serpent, Master Sheng said, his voice deep and steady. The serpent represents renewal, transformation, and the shedding of old skin. Lisa shivered at the idea of shedding skin, of leaving parts of herself behind. The serpent teaches us that to grow, we must release what no longer serves us. Sheng continued, it is a symbol of profound inner change. Mike frowned, his mind racing. Shedding skin? Letting go of the past? These concepts didn't sit easily with him. He he had spent his entire life building his success on control, on holding everything together. But Master Sheng's words cut deep. "The serpent does not fear the shedding process," he said, his eyes scanning the group. "It knows that each layer it sheds brings it closer to its true form. Are you holding on to layers that no longer fit?" Sarah felt a wave of recognition wash over her. She had always resisted change, afraid of what she might lose. But the serpent reminded her that clinging to old patterns would only prevent her from becoming who she was meant to be. "What if I'm holding on too tightly to my old self?" she wondered. Master Sheng's voice interrupted her thoughts. "The serpent teaches us that renewal is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process. Life is always asking us to evolve." As they meditated, Lisa imagined herself as the serpent, slowly shedding her old skin. It was uncomfortable, even painful, but she realized it was necessary. "I've been holding on to so many things that no longer serve me," she thought. "It's time to let them go." For Mike, the serpent was a reminder that he couldn't control everything. Maybe the real power lies in the willingness to change, not in holding on to what's comfortable, he mused. When the meditation ended, Master Sheng looked at them, his gaze intense. "The serpent teaches us to release the past, to let go of the parts of ourselves that have outlived their purpose. Only then can we truly transform." Sarah nodded, feeling a deep sense of clarity. She had been resisting change for too long. Now, the serpent was urging her to embrace it fully, to shed her fears and emerge renewed. Mike, too, felt something shift inside him. "I've been afraid to let go," he admitted, "but maybe that's exactly what I need to do to move forward." Lisa smiled softly. "Shedding old skin isn't easy, but I think we're ready." The group left the session with a newfound understanding of transformation. The serpent had shown them that true growth required letting go, and they were finally ready to embrace that truth. As the final day of their retreat approached, the group gathered for the last lesson. "Today, we will explore the spirit of December," Master Sheng began. "The doe symbolizes grace, intuition, and gentleness." Lisa, who had been deeply moved by the lessons of the deer earlier in their journey, felt a strong connection to this animal. "The doe teaches us to navigate life with softness, even when the world feels harsh," Sheng said softly. "It reminds us that true strength lies in gentleness." Sarah listened carefully, reflecting on her own journey. She had always thought strength meant being unbreakable, but the doe showed her a different path. "The doe moves through life with quiet confidence," Sheng continued. "It teaches us to trust our instincts and to embrace vulnerability as a source of power." Sarah's heart ached with recognition. Had I been too focused on appearing strong while neglecting the power of vulnerability? She wondered. Mike, who had spent most of his life chasing success, found the doe's message surprisingly comforting. He had always valued power and control, but the idea of strength through gentleness was new to him. "The doe teaches us that we don't always have to fight," Master Sheng said, his eyes meeting Mike's. "Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is move gracefully through the challenges life throws at us." Mike felt a wave of peace wash over him. Could I lead with grace instead of force? As they meditated on the doe's energy, Lisa felt a deep sense of calm. She had always been gentle with others, but the doe reminded her that she needed to be just as gentle with herself. "I've been too hard on myself," she thought. "It's time to treat myself with the same kindness I show to others." Sarah, too, felt the doe's presence. She realized that true leadership didn't come from being unyielding. It came from balancing strength with compassion. When the meditation ended, the group sat in quiet reflection. Master Sheng smiled at them, his gaze full of warmth. "The doe teaches us to trust our inner voice, to move through life with grace, and to find strength in our vulnerability," he said. "You have all learned these lessons well." Lisa smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. Sarah and Mike exchanged glances, both recognizing how far they had come on their journey. As the retreat came to an end, the group knew that the lessons of the doe, like those of the other spirit animals, would stay with them long after they left the temple. They had learned to trust themselves, to embrace change, and to move through life with grace. The journey wasn't over, it was just beginning. As the retreat drew to a close, Sarah, Mike, and Lisa sat together in the garden, reflecting on their transformative experience. I never thought I'd learn so much about myself through these animals, Sarah said, her voice soft but full of gratitude. The wolf, the lion, the doe, they've all shown me different sides of strength. Mike nodded in agreement. The hawk and the raven really opened my eyes. I've been living too much in the future, always chasing, never present. Lisa, who had perhaps transformed the most, smiled gently. The deer and the serpent taught me that it's okay to let go, to trust my intuition and embrace change. I've been holding on too tightly for too long. They all shared a moment of silence, each reflecting on how far they had come since arriving at the temple. Master Sheng approached them, his presence as calming as ever. "You've all done well," he said, his voice filled with pride. "The journey of self-discovery is ongoing," Sheng continued. "These animals have given you their wisdom, but now it's up to you to apply those lessons in your lives." Sarah, Mike, and Lisa nodded. They knew that the real work would begin once they returned to their everyday routines. But they also knew that they would carry the spirit of their animals with them, guiding them through whatever challenges lay ahead. As they prepared to leave, Master Sheng gathered them for a final meditation. "Close your eyes," he instructed, "and feel the presence of your spirit animal. They will always be with you, guiding you, protecting you." Sarah imagined the wolf at her side, its eyes fierce but loyal. Mike felt the hawk soaring above him, its vision clear and steady. And Lisa, she saw the deer, moving gently through the forest, calm and graceful. When the meditation ended, they opened their eyes, feeling lighter, freer, and more connected to themselves than ever before. "Remember," Sheng said, "your spirit animal is not just a symbol. It is a guide, a part of you. Trust in its wisdom, and you will find harmony." With that, he bowed to them, and they bowed back, grateful for all they had learned. As they left the temple, each felt a renewed sense of purpose. The world outside felt different, but in reality, it was they who had changed. They had learned to balance strength with vulnerability, ambition with patience, and leadership with compassion. The journey was far from over, but they were ready. The spirit animals had shown them the way, and now it was up to them to walk the path.